So, hi, my name is Gabby Perez-Abreu. This is my presentation on chapter 21 of American Like Me, which was Lin-Manuel Miranda's chapter. And for a little bit of background, Lin-Manuel Miranda, he's a really famous composer, lyricist, and actor. He's won Grammys, he's won Tonys, the whole shebang. So, let's get this started. So, I kind of wanted to begin with a little bit of background on the chapter because I don't want to go deep into the analysis. So, here's just some general info. So, the story mainly takes place in his childhood in Washington Heights, New York, which is where he grew up. And it's basically the day after winter break end, which is in the chapter January 6th, and he's talking to his other Latino classmates, which, a little bit of background, Miranda is of Latino descent. And the whole story is kind of just about him like setting up a scenario around Three Kings Day and what the effects of Three Kings Day is on him as a person. Sorry about that. So here are the lines. I'm not gonna like read them because like you can just pause the video and read them yourself. But let me just dive into the strategies he used. So first, he really started with really interesting syntax. It was very playful syntax. He was specifically starting with lines, "Oh, what'd you get? What'd you get?" It's like really catching your attention that it's gonna be a really cute, playful thing. And he uses present tense really to appeal the pathos to the audience because it's kind of like putting the audience in the situation that he's in. Present tense, that's what it normally does. And then the last part with "we share a smile, the holidays may be done for all the other kids, but not us." That part kind of like, not really suspense, but kind of leaves you wondering, oh, what's going to happen next? Specifically, what is he talking about for people who aren't familiar with the holiday that he's mentioning? Moving on to another analysis is that he kind of starts to give a little bit more context. Like he's still using really like he's still like keeping you on your toes, not really telling you what's gonna happen. Like most people who aren't familiar with like "I will gather hay for the camels," they're not really used to that kind of stuff. They're like, oh, what holiday is it? So the way that he's writing it, the way that he's keeping the reader on his toes, is a really great strategy because it keeps them interested. And Lin-Manuel Miranda, he's known for Broadway, and on Broadway there's a lot of humor and such and such. And he still continues to appeal to the reader's pathos because he's making it playful, he's making it funny, kind of sarcastic, talking about how dead grass because they live in New York City and it's in the middle of winter. And then at the end, he kind of starts giving more context with baby Jesus and the Three Kings, and it's kind of telling the reader, like, oh, okay, so this is what he's really talking about. Sorry, messed up there. And then finally, he explains what he's been talking about the past two paragraphs, and it kind of just like starts to make sense. And he kind of like begins to compare. He starts doing compare and contrast of, let's say, Three Kings Day, Christmas, and even Hanukkah. And as I said before, he's a really humorous writer, and he kind of like pokes fun at the end right here at the fact that, oh, the reason that they have so many presents on Three Kings Day is because it's right after Christmas. So because of Christmas, they're a lot cheaper, which is why most of the parents in Washington Heights, which is a mainly Latin neighborhood in New York City, they can afford these types of things. And like stated here, the style is very sarcastic style, and it kind of keeps you on your toes, and it makes the reader want to keep reading what's happening. Now let's talk about lines 35 through 42. And then so right now he's very childish in the way he talks. There's a lot of strong imagery about about the camels and how they're sloppy eaters, and the mental images climbing up our stairs, clopping from the fire escapes, which is very like how he's the image of camels, in the crowded neighborhood of Washington Heights, in the apartments of Washington Heights. And it's the way that a child would imagine things. It paints a really beautiful image of what a child sees, specifically a Latino child or a child who celebrates the King's Day, on a type of day like this. And at the end right here, he uses a lot of rhetorical questions to keep up the pathos effect. Pathos is the main appeal that he uses all throughout his chapter in American Like Me. And it kind of makes the audience realize, oh, is this how it puts the audience in the perspective of a child who is celebrating this holiday, and it kind of makes them realize, oh, this is what they think of when they're talking about Three Kings Day. Sorry, it's really trigger happy. And then now we're talking about basically kind of just kind of begins with a really cultural explanation with cafe heavy on the milk, which is really common in Latin neighborhoods. And it kind of just gives them a peek into like, oh, what, even though it is a holiday, they still have to go on with school and become accustomed to a completely different culture, an American culture. Well, American meaning stereotypically white, where they don't celebrate this holiday, and instead of being able to celebrate it, a lot of times they still have to go to school. And even though it's still the end of the excerpt, it kind of still gives context about what really happens on that day for those kids, as stated before. And if, let's say, the target audience was not exactly Latinos, but many Latinos probably did read this, so it's very relatable language that Latinos are used to. Cafe, for example, with the accent, that's something that's really common that we, the Latinos, drink. Also with cultural cues, and it's really obvious that this was also written to appeal to a Latino reader. And it also, something I didn't mention here, but it also ends with the "what'd you get, what'd you get," basically saying, oh, the story came full circle. Thank you so much.